It is time for day 4 of the regular season action. Welcome back to the Overwatch League. We have an awesome crowd in here today. Saturday morning, bright and early, and we are going to have a stacked day of matches. Welcome back to the Blizzard Arena. I'm your host once again, Chris Puckett, and we are joined by some of the biggest brains in the competitive Overwatch scene today. We got Crumbs back on the desk alongside Sideshow and Zoe. How's everyone out there doing today? You guys feeling good? Yes! Awesome desk, and before we get into today's matches, I want to hit real quick what we saw in our first 3 days. Real quickly, I want to go down the line. We've seen 12 matches so far. Zoe, I want to start with you. Who impressed the most? What was your favorite match?
So I think we have a lot of good matches, a lot of good maps we've seen. However, I was really excited to finally see the Philadelphia Fusion battling it out on the stage. They really went toe-to-toe against the Houston Outlaws and ended up winning the series. It was great to see their team cohesion and those individual players really showing up.
Sideshow, what was your favorite match?
I gotta say that Dallas Seoul game was phenomenal. The Anubis match, with all of the different counter strategies and the ways they were making micro adaptations, it had me on the edge of my seat. It was fantastic.
Texas team's putting on a show for us so far. Crumbs, finishing with you.
I'm all about the home crowd. The Los Angeles Valiant versus the Dallas Fuel for me was a crazy matchup. It was, I believe, 8-7 on Junkertown. I don't think we're going to see that all season long.
So many great games, and if you missed any of them, you can go back after tonight's show and watch them on OverwatchLeague.com. For now, let's jump into what we're seeing today on Saturday. We start things off with a banger. Our orange teams are facing off. The London Spitfire coming with a 1-0 record, and the same can be said with their competition. The Philadelphia Fusion comes in after upsetting the Houston Outlaws. A little bit later, we'll see New York XL once again, and we close out the night with the best team in the world. In a lot of people's opinion, the Seoul Dynasty are going up against the hometown favorites of the Los Angeles Gladiators. It's time to kick off the action right now as we introduce our first team. It's the London Spitfire. Jester leading the action here, spinning the wheel. And we got to look back to the first matchup. London was able to take down Florida in their first battle, but on Thursday, they dropped the very first game. After dropping Dorado, though, they rallied off 3 straight wins.
Yeah. On paper, this London Spitfire roster is absolutely phenomenal. They are formed of 2 incredible top Korean teams, one of which was the standout best team in the world just before the Overwatch League started, and they're now running a combined roster between the 2 of them. Clearly, they think that it can kind of hit further peaks, but so far we haven't just seen that so far.
And those peaks are being hindered strategically, but when it comes to mechanics, that's what they've been able to overpower their opposition between Prophet and Birdring. Last time we saw them, they were just steamrolling that double duo DPS. So much work.
Yeah, they really brought it to the table right here. Birdring on Soldier Numbani. I still remember how I thought he has his tech visor up constantly, but he didn't. He still had that ult actually going for him. Generally, I also really like to see Prophet playing more on that Tracer role because I actually expected Birdring to be there more.
It was pretty amazing just to see the versatility of this team and how Prophet and Birdring can play the same hero throughout a star-studded lineup. Keep your eyes on Fury today. He is one of the best takes I have seen so far in the league. Let's introduce the opposition on the right side of your stage. Give it up for the Philadelphia Fusion. Here comes the Fusion, and we are going to see a brand new starting lineup. Fraggy, a fantastic day 1 as this squad was able to upset Houston in their first ever debut. They won that one in our first ever game 5, 3-2.
And we got mean hard for thinking that they were not going to show up, but they did. The DPS of Carpe and Shadowburn always give you a fighting chance, but what stood out to me was Fraggy and Poco. The tank combination did so much work between the Diva bombs and the Winston play. Superb tank play from the Fusion.
Yeah, I really liked the game we had on Eichenwalde where Fraggy basically knocked the opponents into the Poco bombs, and that's really the kind of gameplay you want to see from the 2 tank players. And Poco went toe-to-toe, if not ahead of someone like Coolmat. who's known to be one of the best divas out there.
The star for the team for me as well in that game was not just Shadowburn, who's on your screen, but also Carpe, this Korean hit scan player who is so phenomenally good that if he was in a roster that most people would expect to win a few more, he would be considered one of the best players in the world. This guy's got an unbelievable tracer. We've seen his McCree reach insane heights, and he can also play the Genji. It's just that when Shadowburn's on the roster, why would you field him on that hero?
Here you see the starting lineup. You got Carpe, Shadowburn on DPS, Fraggy and Poco are your tanks, and the supports on the right. Boombox playing alongside Davefly today. Fantastic matchup coming our way right now, but before we get to the match breakdown, I want to give a special shout out to a man on the Philadelphia Fusion. Young George is getting a little bit older. It's Shadowburn's birthday. Give him some birthday love. He's going to need some birthday luck today because they are going to go up against a very tough London Spitfire lineup. And we got to talk about this because this is two of the largest rosters in the Overwatch League right now. Both teams are coming in with 1-0 records. So let's talk a little bit about how these squads compare.
I think they compare quite well at the moment because both teams are relatively new. One is with a new roster that have not been playing together for a while, whereas the London Spitfire are still just trying to figure out where the players stand. So that means that strategically they're not as diverse as you would expect them to be, so they're relying on their mechanics. Philadelphia Fusion overpowered the Houston Outlaws on Thursday and the London Spitfire. While they have been having some hiccups when it comes to the macro sense of the game, individually they've been able to just do the same as the Fusion, so I think it's going to be fireworks today.
I couldn't agree more. I was actually really impressed with the London Spitfire support duo, where they did mix and match their tanks and their DPS and swapping them in and out. They did keep to Bidosin as well as Nas, and I think those two players really, really stepped up their game there. Bidosin, most of all, he hit those headshots when he was on the set, and we saw some versatility from him as well as he flexed onto Ana as well as Moira, so a very well-rounded support.
Yeah, what really strikes me as one of the big differences actually between these two team styles, which as you say are traditionally fairly similar, is that London, with their larger hero pools and the fact that they've been able to diversify those hero pools a little bit, have been able to try some more niche strategies. We've seen Jester come out on the Orisa a couple of times. We've seen Fury have a huge list of off-tanks that he can play. And Prophet and Birdring are two of the most flexible, powerful DPS players in the league. So I expect this to give them the advantage on these first two maps of Junkertown and Horizon, where the more niche compositions, the more scrappy engage comps can really favor you.
And Crumbs, we saw London, they stumbled a little bit in the preseason back on Junkertown. What are you expecting Philadelphia to be able to do against them today?
Yeah, so Philadelphia can take a look at what the Gladiators did against the Spitfire, running that Bastion composition and just overwhelm them. It seems like they were not prepared to even know where to defend, how to even handle the map. Obviously, we were still relatively new to that map.
And they were running Jisan, Busan.
And it was another roster as well, right? So we get to see how does this new mixture prepare for this actual map. We don't know just yet, but I think we can expect them to be not as crisp as other teams.
Let's get to predictions, starting with you, Sideshow. Is this London's biggest competition yet? If so, how does it play out?
Oh, this is definitely London's biggest competition yet. So far, they've actually had a fairly easy schedule running forwards. And next, they've got Dallas and then LA Valiant. So it doesn't get any easier. This is their first big test, and they have to overcome Philadelphia Fusion for me to be considered one of the best rosters in the Overwatch League, which is what they should be aiming for with this kind of star-studded roster.
Are you calling London?
I do think it's going to be London coming out with the victory here.
What about you, Zoe?
I think it's going to be London, but I do think they will struggle because they did show that they struggled a little bit with adaptability on that Junkertown map, for example, and Philadelphia is going to actually abuse that.
Crumbs, it's Shadowburn's birthday. He was basically the player of the match right behind Carpe in his first showing. Can Shadowburn lead this squad to a victory for Philadelphia Fusion?
I actually do think that they can, and that's not to say that the London Spitfire is a weak team. I think that they still have a very high ceiling, but it just will take time to ramp up. But I think that the Fusion right now can take advantage of that, and I do see them not necessarily coming out as favorites, but being able to actually win this game. I'm going with the Fusion if that's what you're asking.
I was going to say, just to make it official for Reddit,
yes.
He's going Fusion,
Yes.
2 for London. We'll find out what our casters see in this matchup. It's time to get it going. Let's send it over to Mr. X in Uber.
Thank you very much, Pucker. Looks like Willy Wonka's let the Oompa Loompas out this time. Matt, you like a bit of a bronzing. Which orange are you going with today?
So it's interesting. You said you were going to roast me at the beginning. I didn't know what to expect. I think this is going to be a much closer series than people probably predicted coming into Overwatch League. I think when you have Carpe and Shadowburn on a roster like Philadelphia, you're going to have a chance. But I really liked what we saw from the Philadelphia Fusion tanks yesterday. You know, Fraggy and Poco played phenomenal. Going into Junkertown, you know, a different roster for Philly today. We're going to see Datefly in the lineup. You expect, you know, maybe he plays the Bastion for this team.
Well, everyone's looking pretty sun-kissed in the audience as the arena takes on the shape of J-Town. Probably modelled after Alice Springs in Central Australia, to a degree. Not that terrible a place, but yes, of course, double sniper has been a little bit of the go so far for some of these teams, Matt. We've seen some classic, you know, solo queue hijinks from, you know, Hanzo, Widowmaker combinations coming in. There's a Bastion in the mix. There's so many threats attacking teams to put down.
It's hard because you know the Bastion is going to come on the offensive side. You just don't know what's going to be around it. I mean, you can run, obviously, you know, Arisa Reinhardt, you'll get a lot of shields on the payload.
That's
you
a lot of shields, fam.
Yeah, you could run, you know, Arisa, Diva, maybe you throw like a Roadhog in the mix, just kind of play around and really beefy. Or you could play that double sniper, allow your Mercy to fly away, you know, get back towards your team. It's interesting because there's so much focus being put on the Bastion, you know, getting the Bastion off the cart from the defense's point of view, that you kind of forget about a lot of these other heroes who can do a ton of damage.
Now, we saw May on this map from Seoul in the preseason, and since then, we might actually see that here now as we see everyone line up. Make a bit of bullet noise, guys. Let's jump into this one. London and Philadelphia Fusion head-to-head. What about the May for attackers on this map, Matt? Talk me through it.
Well, May is great on offense here because, you know, the other teams, they expect the Bastion. They play close range. You don't want to play up on that bridge where you see Philadelphia setting up on here.
Switched off already.
You know, May would be great if you can get to that point and split players off, but it looks like the London Spitfire is not going to be running the May here on offense. It looks like they're going to change some things up, making some more changes. So at least right now, looks like Prophet will be playing Reaper. We've seen a little bit more Reaper than what we expected in the preseason. So, you know, now if the Philadelphia Fusion get up close to the payload, you're going to have Reaper and Hanzo to be able to burst down a lot of these tanks.
And they're out of the gates, the Spitfire now looking to set up. Not a lot of tanks on the side of the Fusion, though. Just the standard 2. Again, if Fraggy wants to try and get jiggy with it, he's going to have the Hellfire shotguns to deal with.
If Philadelphia just backs out right here and doesn't contest the payload, what does Prophet do on Reaper? Because it's such an open first point here on Junkertown, it'd be very difficult to get him in a position to make an impact.
Dosen. A little bit of early damage and birdering as well, just trying to find an early target. Fraggy gets charged. Usually it's Fraggy the one that makes the move, but Gesture was all over it there. Finds himself 2 early kills, birdering there. A warning shot find in Boombox's general direction. Wasn't quite charged up enough to get the kill, but he's definitely going to back up.
Yeah, Fraggy was actually backing out underneath the bridge, and the rest of his team is already backed out way far away from him. So he gets pinned by Gesture. Shadowburn comes up a little bit on the Junkrat, tries to help him out, then gets hit with the Fire Strike. He dies, and now you have, you know, some remaining members of the Philadelphia Fusion here trying to get back on the cart, but it's going to be a near impossible take here. As Prophet on the Reaper on the payload takes out Fraggy, a Bird Ring take out Carpe. Should be an easy first push here for the London Spitfire.
Fury as well now, just to clean up Poco. It's going to be pretty straightforward stuff here. The Philadelphia Fusion have not really been in this game right now. The reactors clearly still powering up, and they haven't really found any sort of progress at all. This is what happened earlier on. This is Gesture starting off. Fraggy normally the aggressor, but Gesture gets right up in his face. There's almost an unmissable charge there. That's a stunning fire strike. Shadowburn, happy birthday, bro.
Gesture gets another one on a Carpe. Rarely do you see a Reinhardt take out a Widowmaker at range. Some pretty sick play from Gesture thus far. You're going to have, you know, a lot of ultimates on the board here for the London Spitfire. Shadowburn's going to switch off with Junkrat. I don't believe he actually even got a chance to use the Riptide. He's very close to it, but going to change off of Junkrat. He's going to go over to Genji, try and challenge Bird Ring a little bit.
We've got 4 ultimates here, 5 in fact for the London Spitfire, so they have a lot to be going on with, and the Philadelphia Fusion again are having to push into a position that doesn't have a lot of topographical advantage for defenders, i.e. they're kind of pushing out of these, you know, very sheer apertures now, and Gesture's going to get jumped on here. It was an attempt, a little bit of a tickle from Fraggy, but now the Earth Shatter comes down. Fraggy's knocked on his rear end, and the charge is good. Carpe gets put up against the wall. Not quite the mural you want to see here in Junkertown, but I guess it just fits with all the Omnic bits rolling around the desert. And Gesture's not done. Boombox is playing a little bit too close for comfort, and now the Transcender's being forced out. Fraggy getting him back. Fury's in the backline though, and Prophet trying to break it down, but no one's really there to take the damage. Still forcing the Fusion back here, and again, Philly really with no options here other than to just wait for the next sort of respawn back in. Datefly is forced to give most of his healing on towards Carpe. He drops down. Shadowburn looking very, very low. Worse for wear, and Prophet's waiting for his opening.
Yeah, both support ults invested there from the Philadelphia Fusion. They don't really get much for it. Fraggy here going to use Primal Rage, just trying to stall the card out. Then he's going to have to back out, go towards his spawn. It's the London Spitfire. Looked great here on Junkertown on offense, and I think the one benefit of not running the Bastion comp is that we see a lot of teams, it's successful early on. Once they get pushed off of the payload, it's very difficult to get that Bastion back on. You have to make a lot of changes to the overall heroes that you're running. When you don't have the Bastion comp, it's a lot easier to kind of just progress fluidly.
The Reinhardt allows you to move up as well and not take too much poke damage, which is quite tricky sometimes for the attackers to deal with if the defense is getting aggressive.
And Shadowburn.
Earthshatter coming in though.
Big Earthshatter.
Hold the phone. It's going to be Shadowburn put up against the wall. Poco from the top can only really look on in dismay, and the rest of his team are essentially just herded into the small space and taken apart one by one. Boombox needs to take a deep dive. He'll be healed by Dayfly. In theory, he's done for now.
I was going to say, with Shadowburn getting very close to a Dragon Blade, he knows that, the only real sustain ultimate on the side of the London Spitfire is Nuss with the Valkyrie. Would have been able to use that without Valkyrie online. He gets taken out with the Earthshatter early in that fight, allows Nuss to build up towards that Valkyrie. Now you have Valkyrie and Nano Boost for the London Spitfire as Birdring switches off of Widow, goes over to McCree here in the final stages.
Transcendence now for the Philadelphia Fusion. Birdring contending with just some shots from the backline, but Shadowburn's not going to give him any room to breathe. Looking for Mendoza, but he's got a big Reaper in his face, blocking a lot of the Death Blossom, and Prophet's down. Carpe picks him off from long range, and Reaper is vulnerable to snipers, but Birdring's back in the action, and Shadowburn doesn't take long to fall. He, in turn, will be brought back up by Dayfly, self-destruct over the top. We know what Poco does with these. That one actually gets two! How does he find kills from these? Nuss and Birdring both out of the picture. No real healing available now. Bedosen falling. And Fraggy now knows it's his chance to come forward and spread some damage.
It's unbelievable. He throws the self-destruct up top, and at least from the view that we were looking at, it's like, oh, he's not going to connect with anything here. This is the first miss we're going to see out of Poco with his self-destruct. Picks up two with it. Helps Philadelphia at least stabilize on defense for a short amount of time. So, okay, so now the London Spitfire, you see Prophet will go over to Genji. We're actually going to see Lucio Zin here played by the London Spitfire. It's interesting. We usually only see that on something like a control map. Gesture comes behind and enemy lines, lands an Earthshatter.
Fury actually avoids getting pinned there. Fraggy now might be in a compromising position. Forced to Earthshatter. Actually does knock the mech down, but Nuss was still on his feet. Still in a position, of course, to get rid of the Reinhardt. Shadowburn holding his Dragon Blade for the time being. He's being pursued doggedly, but he gets the health back. Dayfly gives him a top up just as he peeks back into spawn. Shadowburn would love to blade here, but he needs a bit of support. Bedosen taking a few shurikens might give him the opening he needs, but the Spitfire are going to back away regardless.
Yeah, and Shadowburn knows that because both supports switched heroes, that you're not going to have any of those support ultimates online. So you're not going to have Transcendence, not going to have Sound Barrier. Gesture will go off of Reinhardt, go over to Winston.
Oh,
You're not
switch
now.
him for Nuss.
Okay, so he'll go back to Mercy. So interesting. Maybe they just tried to use that speed boost to get Gesture in a position and use that Earthshatter a little bit quicker, catch Philly off guard, maybe try and use it for one
try
push.
to access that back line perhaps. Carpe now. Recon Visor is active, so we can see the silhouette of Birdring lingering in the distance. That would have been a pretty big pick there, but Carpe is not rewarded again. Second shot doesn't connect. Find one, and you can see for the moment that just she's not really sure how to drop into this one. Dragon Blade, though, that's pretty big. Birdring down already. Surely a second for Shadowman, but he kind of loses track of where he was standing. Dayfly at least is going to keep him healed up, and Birdring is back, care of Nuss. So the Dragon Blade's effect essentially nullified, with the exception of the ultimate being drawn out, or the resurrect, should I say. Nuss is still only at 46%. And I was Carpe in the back lines finding a couple there. Birdring is going to be so vulnerable to this Widowmaker if he puts himself in the open.
I was going to say, you're starting to see Carpe heat up on the Widow because McCree's, pretty easy target, I would say, for the Widowmaker. He doesn't have like a lot of great movement, not able to escape really. He's not a fast hero. So Birdring actually will switch over to Tracer now. So be able to dive Carpe a little bit better in the back line.
Carpe wasn't pressured very much in that previous fight, safe to say. The backlines, though, you can see the Fusion, well, at least London are attempting to get on them, but Boombox isn't really playing the backline, he's playing from up above. Fraggy goes down to Prophet, so a tank being the first to fall, and Boombox might just have to go for a Transcendence to stay alive here. It's too crucial at this stage of the game, and yeah, he draws it out. It's only Fraggy benefiting from the healing at the moment, and they've got to make this count, but it looks like they're not able to pick up any kills despite the presence of the Transcendence. Prophet down, though. Shadowburn cleans him up with a shuriken, but he's back on his feet as quickly as you can say. Where's my Genji? Fury finds Poco, but Nuss falls to Fraggy there. He goes in deep for the res, and he's punished for it.
Yeah, there's only 30 seconds left here. Shadowburn 96% and counting towards his blade. He's going to get it now. See if he can get out of the spawn, make an impact. Boombox with a big kill there on a Prophet. Gesture using the Primal Rage, just trying to stay alive here on the point, but no ultimates here online for the London Spitfire.
Verdring trying to tease with Boombox here. He's so low, he manages to pick him off. That's going to be a while to wait. Carpe down as well. It means the way is pretty much open for the Spitfire to make a safe landing here. Emergency or otherwise. It's Fraggy forced back, getting healed up by Dayfly, but there's a Transcendence here for the Spitfire, and that makes it so easy for Verdring to get in there. Fury with 2 kills and a D-suit. Dayfly not long for this world. There's a pulse bomb, and Verdring wants it, and he's just going to lob it in that direction, laconically, in fact. Spitfire get it done. No time in the bank. Finally, the Fusion wake up. Maybe a little bit too late in the map for that, but at least there's no bank.
Didn't look good for the Philadelphia Fusion for a while there. They're able to stabilize on defense. I think you saw some nice hero switches from Philly on the defensive side of things. You know, Carpe goes over to McCree a little bit. Shadowburn, it was playing Junkrat for a lot of like the first stage and second stage of the map. Then he goes over to
Carpe's
Genji.
Widow definitely put some pressure on the Spitfire. You can't really get away with playing low mobility heroes or heroes that require babysitting like McCree. Generally speaking, you need to pressure that Widow out. I mean, you're not going to beat her at long range like that, I feel. I'm glad we sort of switched and we went to the Tracer, and then... This is insane, by the way. This is the similar team setup that the Spitfire have been playing now. This is obviously a mix of the 2 rosters. Having Prophet and Birdring on the same team is so sick. Yeah. Because the hero pools overlap to a degree, but they've also got a huge amount of flexibility amongst that. Either of these guys played Genji yesterday. You saw what they were able to do to the Mayhem as well. Mayhem may be running less Zenyatta than some of the other teams, so it's easy to get those big Dragon Blade kills. But London, it's a newer look for them as well. You got to realize this is essentially 2 newer rosters going head to head.
Yeah, it's kind of like coming into Overwatch League, we weren't sure whether the London Spitfire were going to mix these rosters, or are they going to keep the Busan roster and the mostly Kanji roster.
It was announced that they were going to keep them separate.
Yes, but I think you look at these rosters and you have so much talent, like it's so tempting. Like, let's just mix them, see what happens. You got to remind yourself, this is a long season, right? So you can try some things out a little bit early on, see what works, see what doesn't as time goes on. I think Carpe, towards the end, you made a great point. No, when he was hitting shots in the Widowmaker, it's a lot like what we saw in the Gladiators versus Shanghai Dragons match, where Surfer was able to get so much done on the Widow because the other team didn't have a Widow of their own. They had Birdring on the Widow for a while. When he switched over to McCree, that's when Carpe was able to do a ton of damage.
So let's talk about this. There's going to be a defensive Moira on this map, which is not something you often see. A heavy tank composition. We saw the Custom manage to break healing records for Moira in a heavy tank comp for the Fuel. Nuts, though, goes down early here to Shadowburn. Not the great start that the Spitfire were looking for. They've lost the Lucio. They've lost their mobility. Now they're forced to back up sheepishly and slowly at that.
And they're going to have to back out very far here, as you don't have the Mercy, you can't get the res. You're using the Lucio for the speed boost to back you out of that fight. So now it's going to be Nuss getting back into the equation for the Spitfire. Comes off the spawn. See what they decide to do, because you'd like Moira if there was not a Diva on the other side. You see there, Fraggy, the shield comes down, and he gets punished in a big way.
Carpe thinks twice about playing so far forward now. Boombox being corralled out towards the side. Out of position and out of teammates to assist him. And the Spitfire managed to regain control. Despite losing their Lucio early on, Fraggy perhaps out of position. 2 players, in fact, from the Philadelphia Fusion that were not protected by their formation.
Well, for the London Spitfire, you have the quad tank, and you would like the quad tank potentially, with the Mercy. We'll see Shadowburn here use a Riptire, gets it quite early, but put down a ton of damage on these tanks. We'll see if he can get anything with it here. Trying to darting around, doesn't connect with anything.
You're playing in such a tanky composition as well. So these guys have large HP pools, there's hooks, there's all sorts of things to disrupt you there. Shadowburn now as well, he's in a good position though, just to get unanswered damage. You can see the concussive mine being thrown in. And look at the health bars on the Spitfire. Chunked on down, it's going to force the sound barrier out for them, but no! Nuss has been caught! The shield wasn't quite enough for Shadowburn, and he's able to break through it pretty comfortably. Another Riptire! How quick is that? Insane! Unfortunately, it doesn't account to much, because Fury's going to jump on him now. The Graviton Surge used to help the Spitfire here just clean up the extra damage. And Boombox, a Transcendence that no one's really there to benefit from. Gesture now can push forward. Again, Spitfire hole.
It's so difficult because you have such large HP targets on the side of the London Spitfire. See from Carpe's POV, what do you do? I mean, it's not anyone you can really take out in that one shot. Poco, the self-destruct connects on Nuss. It's going to force out the Coalescence here. So it'll be 2 kills for the Philly Fusion. This is where you really miss the Mercy, right? But this time she would have had Valkyrie for the London Spitfire.
Oh, there's Prophet going down. He tries to go for the Widow himself, but Carpe stands tall. And an opportunity now for Philly to make some ground. I'm telling you, Matt, Death, Taxes, and Poker getting self-destruct kills, you can really count on that one. He really opened the fight up for the Fusion.
Every single time, he seems to connect with at least one player with these self-destructs.
And you've got to be getting mad as well. You're like, guys, we need to stop dying to this ultimate. It's so telegraphed, and yet, The Spitfire have fallen foul of it multiple times so far this match.
It's not like a Riptire where you don't really have an idea where it's coming from sometimes. It's a large mech flying through the sky.
Like, get a blow-up in a couple seconds right about here.
Just get out of the way. Shadowburn actually goes over to Tracer here, so you usually see Carpe play the Tracer for this Philly Fusion lineup, but he's been hitting a lot of nice shots on the Widowmaker. You want to keep him up. Well, there's a nice one. We see Nuss actually goes over to Mercy here, so you're gonna be running Mercy Moira on defense. Carpe has helped open this up for the Philly Fusion.
Now look at this, and now look at Carpe's positioning as well. He knows he can drop down, he's feeling safe, he's feeling confident. Definitely in the groove, and what a great part of the map to be playing this Widowmaker on. Now that he has that high ground advantage, the rest of his team are pushed forward. They have Shadowburn deep in enemy territory as well to keep them busy.
The ult advantage is insane right now for Philly. You have all 6 online for the Philadelphia Fusion. You see Carpe's stats on Widowmaker. The 67%
That's a really good scoped accuracy.
Scoped accuracy is sick. But look, because of the London Spitfires forcing to make changes here, you've reset ultimates on Prophet, Nuss, Gesture, who recently falls, and now Bedosin. So you come into this fight with really nothing. The Philly Fusion may not have had to invest as much as they already did, right? They used the Earth Shatter, they used Pulse Bomb, and they used the Infrared Sight.
Bedosin getting pressured in, but Poker can't quite finish the job. Bedosin able to slip away. What a cheeky little man. He actually gets out alive. That's impressive work. The healing, of course, now given to him, and now Poker turns his attention to Nuss, the guy that put the egg on his face. The Mercy's going to be down now. That's a good start for the Fusion, especially now with the Reses coming in. Dayfly's brought Boombox and Carpe back. Gesture gets finished off, he's trying to escape, but Poco has the extra damage, and now, yeah, guys, look away if you struggle with motion sickness, as Fury is trying to avoid the damage, and Poco cleans him up. Again, this man being credited for so many of these kills in the fight, now protecting his backline. This man can do it all.
But the fight actually isn't that bad for the London Spitfire. A lot of ultimates being invested here. Now it's going to be the Transcendence used here by the Philly Fusion, just by Prophet using his Dragon Blade. Coming into the next fight, you'll have your own Valkyrie for the London Spitfire. You have Primal Rage now online for Gesture. He decides to use it right now. He's going to just keep stalling out the payload, as now it's kind of made the ultimate economy a little bit more even across the board, because we came into the fight where it was Philly with all 6.
Gone through many of those. Let's chat here for Frank. We know he's more than happy to use them, but why not wait? The Philadelphia Fusion get over the line as the Spitfire are very scattered, and unable to really test any further. 3 minutes and 4 on the clock. A very good trajectory for the Fusion, but this last part of the map is where many attacking teams can get snarled up, can get delayed, can get waylaid, essentially put in a position where they get slowed down by the high ground control of defending teams, or they bring out a Widowmaker. We'll see if the Spitfire can actually grind them to a halt here, because so far, there's only been a couple speed bumps here and there.
And I think Fraggy could be a big difference maker here, as we see the Valkyrie pop from both sides. Maybe he lands a big Earth Shatter, knocks a few of these players from London to the ground, and then you see the cleanup crew start to come on in. Gesture dives towards that backline. He's going to get res. He's got Prophet working with him there as well, sitting up top with that Dragon Blade.
Carpe forced to back out. Oh, Fury catches him at the heels, and Dayfly knows he needs to bring him back. The Philadelphia Fusion value the momentum they've built, and they want to maintain it. The Pulse Bomb for Shadowburn. He was hoping for a Flying Mercy to catch him. Birdring can't decide whether he wants to go for Frankie or Shadowburn, but it's got to be neither. Shadowburn catches up to him here. He gets a little bit too deep. You got to watch out for the Reinhardt Hammer. Prophet trying to make something happen here with the Dragon Blade, but again, it's just Carpe down. Dayfly fell as well to him. Swift Strike earlier on. Definitely came up with the goods, and that should be job done for Spitfire for the time being.
Spitfire, though, did have to invest a decent amount into that fight. You had your Valkyries at the beginning, and then you also did have the Transcendence there and Dragon Blade towards the end. See what the Philadelphia Fusion can get done here. So it looks like Poco is forced to use a self-destruct to get right back in his mech. Fraggy's still with the Earth Shatter. Carpe switches off to McCree. So I think probably to deal a little bit with the Tracer Genji combination, you would probably...
enough to deal with 2 divers, though?
Especially with 2 divers as good as Prophet Birdring, I don't really know.
Well, he's up to the task anyway, Matt. He's going to have a crack.
But what are your options? I mean, you can play dive back, right? I mean, I guess you can switch Fraggy off with the Rhine and just try and out-dive them. You can put Shadowburn on the Genji and put Carpe on Tracer. But that leaves your supports in a rough spot.
Leaves minimal protection. Although we have seen Poco spend some time in his backline, at least getting some defense matrix protection for his supports. And for the moment, the Fusion are just trying to test the Spitfire a little bit now. Carpe onto the Tracer now. So just as you kind of said, they're going to try and, again, replicate the Spitfire's dive. Well, Carpe and Shadowburn, probably not a bad option if you got them to go in aggressive.
I was going to say, if you're the Philadelphia Fusion, like, this is the type of game you want to play. You want to play dive with these 2 players on their best heroes. So you see Gesture Gideon start to cause a lot of damage here. Daylight just earns his Valkyrie, but he falls. Not going to be able to use it here. Only 37 seconds left. The Fusion gonna have to reset.
This is a really nasty spot for the Fusion, actually, because they've got to pour into this last stage from, like, a very limited number of doors. Shadowburn gets staggered there. That's really not ideal. He'll be back with about 16 seconds left in the round, and that barely gives the Fusion enough time to get to the payload, let alone finish the map.
The Fusion will have their Valkyrie, though. That's about it. Poco, maybe the self-destruct. You know, usually you'd kind of count out somebody with a self-destruct. That's the only offensive ultimate going into the fight, but maybe not Poco.
Dayfly has a Valkyrie. I would go for it preemptively. He does. He's going to use it for that extra healing early on. Carpe on the high ground, looking for Bidoshin. Finally, the Fusion have found the backline entry they've been looking for, but it's going to take more than that. Birdring's done just the same towards Boombox, but Nuss is down, so no support available for the Spitfire right now, and Fusion have brought theirs back. The Valkyrie really counting for a lot of the healing at this stage. Prophet tries to go deep, but Poco's there. Nice peel for his backline. That's what you're looking for as a Fusion right now. You can't afford to take any risks. They're in overtime, but they have a chance. Fury drops down. The payload's moving. The wick is burning, but the Fusion are on the roll.
Yeah, you got to get Boombox into the fight. Yet again, he's going to have that Transcendence, the counter Prophet's Dragon Blade on the other side of things. Shadowburn getting close to his own Dragon Blade. You do have Transcendence
This is going to
for
get messy.
the Spitfire.
This is going to get real messy. The Spitfire are going to just use whatever they've got to try and finish this off, but they found Dayfly early. No Resurrect. That's huge. The perfect pick for the Spitfire has been found, and that Shadowburn's going to go down as well. It's all gone wrong for the Fusion. They were set up. They had the ultimate. They had the positioning. Momentum gets completely taken away from them. The Spitfire, clinical position, picking out the exact target they needed, and Dayfly will be regretting being stood where he was. The Fusion were close. It was in their sights, but the Spitfire shut the door in their face.
Yeah, Shadowburn not able to get any use of that Dragon Blade there towards the end. Prophet comes on through, Gesture with a kill to open things up. Spitfire hold on defense, and they'll take map number 1.
All right, good start for the line of Spitfire, but the Fusion are looking pretty hot to trot. Let's see if they bring it back in our second map. It's just around the corner, guys. See you in a sec.
Omen by HP. arguably the #1 ranked team. It's the London Spitfire. The top 2 Korean teams basically put together on one super team.
제 경쟁도 어느 정도 있다고 생각하고 서로 각자 알아서 잘할 거기 때문에 서로 이제 도움을 주고 많이 이끌어준다기보다는 각자 잘해서 정상에서 만나고 막 이런 식으로.
This team has so many good players. It's just a matter of how do they make it work.
아무래도 다 똑같은 생각을 하고 있을 것 같은데 우승이 아마 팀 목표가 되지 않을까 생각돼요.
That was a masterclass from the Spitfire.
이번 시즌 팀 목표는 당연히 뭐 시즌 우승, 초대 우승이 되는 거고요.
London Spitfire, nearly unstoppable.
Yeah, the London Spitfire, either prove yourself or sit on the bench while the rest of these world-class players take the stage. Definitely quite the fertile ground for players to really try and show their true potential. But speaking of which, we're just seeing the early stages of the Philadelphia Fusion's development out here. Yesterday, or previously in the week, should I say, the Spitfire were a little bit slower to start in their series. I'm dropping that first map every now and then. This time, they seem to be pretty much hitting the ground running, and Horizon will be around the corner for map 2.
I do feel like you're going to see the London Spitfire really get into a groove as this season goes on, if this is the roster they're going to go with, right? These are new players. Obviously, you have some kind of holdovers that were teammates, and you're mixing some new players into the mix, but when they start to get a little bit more teamwork, cohesion together, the talent that's on this roster, it's going to be sick. And if they're already this good, it's going to be scary as we get deeper into the season.
There is an undertone of competitiveness between the two groups. So despite the roster kind of coming together, I wonder how that's changed for them now. Because I know it started out as being we're going to keep rosters separate. And then I talked to Bishop, the big Bish, earlier on in the week. And he said, no, we're going to mix things up now. So something must have triggered this move, maybe. Who knows? I just find it very, very interesting that their whole paradigm or approach to this roster has changed, but I'm enjoying it. This is what many of us wanted to see, a permutation or an amalgamation, I guess, of both these rosters of world-class players.
I feel like if you're going to change things up, really mix them up, like putting like 1 or 2 players in, like let's say if you had the Busan lineup and you want to just throw Birdring in there, like then it could kind of get weird, right? Because they're like, well, why just sub in one guy? Like, let's really mix it up if we're going to mix it up.
What I'm glad to see, though, is changing up the teams before you get up there, but maybe not changing players every map. We've got some teams that are making a lot of these substitutions, right? And you play one game and Seagull's wrapping his keyboard up and just getting the heck off the stage, and another player's sort of coming on here. So perhaps it's just better if you have this sort of this roster that you can change, but maybe in between matches and not maps, give them a chance to really warm up and gel.
Or I think keep the same core and maybe like one or two players come out, right? And I think as we go on, we'll kind of learn, get some more data on what the substitutions do for certain lineups. It'll be
this is rude.
Philadelphia Fusion here on defense.
This is so rude.
You're going to use the defense matrix to give Carpe a free shot on some players coming out of the spawn, but Spitfire coming out from up top.
They've been bamboozled, Matt. There was no way the Spitfire were going to face in the front door, especially when Carpe was looking to put a package on the doorstep and light it up for them as they opened it up. Birdring takes a heck of a lot of damage early. He's been completely knocked out of position. He can't get back to his team. Oh my lord, how annoying must that be? Being pushed and prodded around the map with no decision in where you go. Carpe finds Bedosin early, and Spitfire are now deep in enemy territory with 4 players.
It was the halt from Fraggy that kind of brought him up like a little bit elevated, and then they actually think Poco dives into him with the Diva and knocks him up. Where is London going?
The stagger here is incredible. Look at these kills. They're not all coming at once either. It's like, Gesture goes down, and now Fury's eventually going to drop it. How long is that going to take? How long is that going to be before he gets back to the rest of his team? The Spitfire just walks straight into the Fusion's trap. The Fusion like, hey, welcome to our mansion. Let me give you a tour. They stab the knife in just as they get into the sitting room. And they just pretty much, look, there are players here for the Spitfire still. This has taken so much time off the clock. Already a minute down, and London are yet to actually get onto the first point.
London opted for an interesting strategy, trying to cap point B before point A there. 3 players all the way to the back. All right. They'll get another crack at it.
Carpe in the library with the candlestick, Matt.
So Birdring will switch. He'll go over to Tracer from Roadhog. Prophet will stay on Zarya here. So you gain a lot of charge from the Junkrat play that comes in.
Look how the Fusion give up the point though as well. This is pretty interesting. Now they get to play the role of the attackers when they move into the point. The Spitfire are the ones that are already going to be sort of put into these close quarters. That's just what a Reptile wants as well. Interesting that Nuss was the only one to go down, but Dosen used a nice fade to get away. So they haven't lost all their healing, but they've lost a large component of it. Poco, he's got the button on his ass. He's thinking about it. He wants to go in. No self-destruct yet though, but it would be so devastating on this particular point. It would force the Spitfire into one spot.
You got a D-Mac here on a Prophet. She's going to leave that mini Diva alive. It'll be Fury that actually falls here. Oh, going to keep letting him walk.
Fury.
It's always hard to see.
Yeah. Poco's sitting there in his mech like, yo, what's up? It's like the guy that looks just like you that has a Maserati.
Yeah.
You have like a Toyota Prius.
Now Berberine goes back to Roadhog. So he goes from Roadhog to Tracer, then back to the spawn, then goes over to Roadhog again. So just getting some larger HP targets onto the point, because the idea here is, right, you barrel onto the point with the speed boost, you have Coalescence now to keep you alive, maybe you get a grab here.
Much damage.
Yeah,
They're taking so much damage from this Junkrat. Shadowman is just wrecking them as they're trying to approach.
and now you'll have those support ults, you'll have Supercharger to combine with the damage that already Junkrat puts down.
Oh, Carpe. That'll be so rude. He gets a bit of damage in, but again, it's not going to amount to any kills. The Infrasight wears off, and now the Spitfire on the point. Carpe still looking for a spot to get him, but Gesture goes down early on. No Resurrect, of course, because the Spitfire didn't bring a Mercy. This could go all wrong for them. Graviton surge in, but it doesn't matter. The rest of the Fusion managed to withstand this aggression, and they just turn back. Poco again gets a kill with that self-destruct. What's up, fans? Let's get excited. The Philadelphia Fusion are actually putting up quite the fight here. It just astounds me how a team so newly formed can have such an intricate and interesting strategy on the defense to stymie one of the best teams in global Overwatch.
I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how you stop this, quad tank lineup when it comes at you and just barrels onto the point. You're seeing Philadelphia do a fantastic job of dealing with it. Not really changing much off of what we normally see, right? We see a lot of Orisa up top, protecting the Widow. So now you'll see the London Spitfire make some changes. They're going to have Prophet move off of Zarya. He'll play Genji here towards the later half of the game. You're going to have a Sound Barrier, going to have Earth Shatter, and a Self-Destruct here for the London Spitfire.
Oh, Self-Destruct coming in, Carpe just around the corner to avoid that. Shadowbird saw it coming, and still he allowed himself to get vaporized. He's going to be brought back hastily by Dayflay. They need the Junkrat here. Bedosin down to Carpe, Riptire in, it's Poco getting desuited, but Jester's already fallen. Fraggy stands tall on the point here. All four legs flat on the ground, right where they belong. And now an extra shield, and Nuss is trying to get towards this Orisa. Fury now as well with that Discord orb on him, if I'm not mistaken. It's going to be tough, but Prophet's in the backline doing work. He's got some mad damage. Dayfly down, both supports are missing for the Fusion. This may be turning around. In fact, it is! Somehow the Fusion looked like they had this all under wraps, but in the meantime, Prophet was too busy snatching up the rest of the squishy targets.
Yeah, Nuss get back there on the Lucio, provide the speed to bring some other members back in. Prophet, though, in the back line, just dashing through the supports as Genji. Gesture will move off of Rhine. He'll go over to Winston here, so you're going to get a true dive coming out of the London Spitfire, trying to take point B.
The jump in, Fraggy trying to peel for his team there, just ducking back in towards the spawn area briefly. Bedosin's got the rule of the roost right now. No one's pressuring him. Fraggy's too low to go for the Zenyatta, and there's no one else on the Fusion that can really contest. Shadowburn being out of the picture makes it very easy for Bedosin now just to sit back. He's going to get chased, though. You can see that Fraggy's looking for both supports. He's at least zoned them out for the time being. It's going to take more than that, though. Transcendence brings Bedosin back on towards the point here, but so the Fusion have their own.
Yeah, but it's going to be Prophet with a Dragon Blade. No support ults online here. He's going to get Dayfly, trying to find more targets. He's located Boombox in the back. Not the spot you want to be in there when he's coming at you with the Dragon Blade. Looks like the London Spitfire making some progress here towards taking point B. Shadowburn still lurking around, though, but it may not be enough. Carpe with a sick kill there, though, on the Prophet.
That was really nice there. Carpe was about 50 HP in getting that one. Does eventually fall here to Gesture. There's going to be a pulse bomb on a Fraggy. Fraggy goes low now. Oh, as soon as he hits the ground, he is vaporized. The rest of the Fusion are filtering in, though. They are actually spawning quite close. Poco's here, so is Shadowburn. Fury might just want to zone out with a self-destruct and chase people down. For the moment, though, he's happy to hold the defense matrix. Up he goes. What goes up, Matt? Oh, must come down. We'll see if we'll actually get anything with it. No, but he forces the Fusion back off towards these little side rooms here. This puts Shadowburn without much defense from his tank line, and Fury continues the work with a new suit.
But it's going to be Dayfly here with a Valkyrie coming up. Shadowburn with a Dragon Blade for the Philadelphia Fusion. They use the Valkyrie, bring Shadowburn back in the fight. Poco with a self-destruct yet again. Shadowburn doesn't have to use the Dragon Blade here, so you'll have that big ultimate here going on forward. It's not easy. The Philadelphia Fusion somehow bring it back.
Oh, okay, Spitfire are mad. Poco got another kill with a self-destruct. Definitely not the ideal situation there. So the Spitfire, Matt, they start off quite well in that fight. They're using their momentum from taking the first point a little bit there. A couple players are actually getting caught out. You see, obviously, the tank players in position for London were in control, but it's tough when your defenders are spawning so close to the point there. The Fusion had a lot of opportunities to break back in.
Yeah, and you can just keep going on the defensive end, like back onto the point really quick when you have a player like Carpe on the Tracer, right? He can just dart out, kill one, kill two, sends the attackers back to the spawn. You have maybe one of the tanks come back into play for Philly, stay alive longer, then you have some of the supports come online, then you have ultimates, right? I mean, Dayflight gets his Valkyrie, Shadowburn gets Dragon Blade, doesn't use it in that fight, but you still have it at your disposal. And then Poco, the self-destruct, connects with one. That stops that push from the London Spitfire.
In this day and age, or at least at this level in Overwatch, quite often, D.Va self-destruct is used so that the player can get his suit back. So it's just it's a heal essentially, providing that you can survive until the animation of self-destruct is finished. You can jump back in and go. Poker's almost getting, double value out of it as well by setting it up so he can pick up these kills. His team trusts him also to set that up and give them a man advantage. So that's obviously, where the Fusion are able to make use of that. Tough for Fraggy though. You see the Fraggy getting bursted down before he can sort of hit the ground here. For a Reinhardt, predominantly Reinhardt player, he's demonstrated some excellent wins and stuff for us so far. And the Fusion can sit back now. 2 minutes and 5 seconds. They're going to chase a couple of kills before now having a chance to really get set up here on this last point.
It was really difficult for Fraggy there because we saw from Bedosen's POV for a little bit from the London Spitfire, but he was up on top playing Zenyatta, just able to throw Discords down, just get a lot of free damage, and then Fraggy gets low. There's nobody there to chase him out, Bedosen, from that high ground position. He's forced to do so. What happens? Nuss comes back, heals Bedosen up. They're not able to get that Zenyatta in the back, and you're still just letting the point go to London. So we get back into the action just to kind of set the stage here a little bit. Prophet goes off of Genji. He'll go over to Soldier 76. So it looks like you can get a little bit more high ground control here for the London Spitfire.
Yeah, once he gets that attack visor, if he's unattended and Poco's desuited, it could be lights out for the Fusion at the stage. Poco drops down. Now you can see Prophet. Look what he's doing from up above. He's got so much room. Poco's too low to do anything about it. He's out of defense matrix. This is where it gets a little bit scary. Purging those found Fraggy. Poco gets desuited now. Gesture on the boombox, and that should be it. That's a clean fight for the Spitfire. There's really not much that can be done there. We don't even need to see the last moments. But that is going to be it. 1 minute and 5 left on the clock here for the Spitfire. They look fallible though, Matt. These guys do bleed.
It was just like what you were talking about, though. As soon as Prophet got up on top, he was able to rain down a ton of damage, because you looked at the fight before, when Bedosen was up there, nobody was challenging him. So you could have just had the comms for the London Spitfire, like, hey, they're just giving us the high ground. They're not really contesting that. Let's get to 76. You put the 76 up top with Zenyatta. You're able to just rain down a ton of damage on the discorded targets. You get the DMEC, then you use the attack visor, and everything falls apart.
I feel like sometimes defending teams in that situation are forced into a lose-lose, right? So let's say Spitfire's tanks do a very good job of getting onto the back line of Philadelphia, which they generally do. They also have a Zenyatta or a 76 up on the high ground. If you're the Philadelphia Fusion's tanks, where do you go? Do you try and shut down enemy backline, or do you peel? I think this is like the perennial problem confronting every tank player.
Yeah, do you turn your back to a 76 and to Zenyatta, who has a Discord on you, just mowing you down? Because then if you go to the back, if you go to peel for your own backline and you don't keep them alive, you are dead as well, and that's pretty much a full team kill.
There's no damage to follow you up.
If you go to the other side, at best you get maybe once you trade supports, right? At that point, and then just kind of brawl it out, whichever DPS and tanks have just more HP. At that moment, I think that's probably what teams are kind of considering.
And I feel like the attacking team is almost playing with house money at that point. They're the ones that get set up in what comforts them. It's got to be the defenders to respond. But that's kind of how the game works.
And from the offensive side, if you have a Mercy, right, you can just back up more than the defensive team. The defensive team's going to back up into their spawn. You can back up a little bit if you're the London Spitfire there on offense, because what happens, you heal your Zenyatta, the Zenyatta dies, the 76 takes out a tank, you res the Zenyatta back up, and you're back at full strength.
Let's see if it plays out that way. Now, the Fusion on the attack, they showed us something a little bit different on defense. Some real, confident play from Carpe with his positioning on Widow. Now he's going to be on that Tracer. So this is pretty cut and dry. Although, again, Angels and Airwaves is back again. It's going to be Lucio and Mercy. So perhaps the Fusion want to use a speed boost just to get in position, because there's a little bit of an uncomfortable period for attackers as they're moving through the middle of the map. Carpe gets picked off there by Prophet early, likely a trap or something similar, so they'll have to wait for him. But around this corner, there's that interval, right, Matt, of 3 to 5 seconds where the attackers can be quite vulnerable as they try and get across towards the left again.
What we usually saw teams do in the preseason is they had the Orisa set up top with her. Well, this is just like a very stalled out push here from the Fusion. That would be the right term to use here. Is Carpe is running out. Look at Shadowburn's picture at the bottom. He's just leaning back, chilling. He's like, I ain't got to do anything yet. Okay, now we start to see some of the members from the Philly Fusion move forward outside of Carpe. Gesture that will take out Fraggy. Again, it's a pretty poor start from Philly.
nothing you can do about this. We did see the Philadelphia Fusion get a bit impatient. I think we did see Fraggy jump across onto the high ground. So I'm not really sure what the idea was with that. Look at Poker, look how low he is now. He needs to get healed up. At least that's ultimate percentage for your supports.
And there's so much damage from the London Spitfire if the Philadelphia Fusion try and dive up on top, leading with Fraggy, right? Because you dive in on the Winston, no Gesture with the Arista can put down a ton of damage. You already have a Junkrat, you have a Roadhog, so there's a lot of burst potential able to take out this Winston of the Philly Fusion. You see they lead up there with Poco, he instantly gets defected.
Back it up, boys. Carpe now looking to make a change here, and I think the rest of the Fusion are either going to get staggered or forced to run away. Dayfly is probably going to drop here. It's not a position he wants to be in, but Ocean trying to chase him up. Okay, so we need to see a complete change here from the Fusion. Shadowburn Dayfly down. Yep, that's almost a foregone conclusion. The Fusion have lost at least a minute of just sitting around waiting for people to be unstaggered. So they haven't managed to get everyone in position to even start to make a play of this.
And we take a look at the replay, and it's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah, he gets hooked. The halt plus the hook, he gets dragged on in, and then what do you get dragged on into? You know, the Junkrat, the Widowmaker, just a ton of damage.
Carpe can't do anything against double shield like that. You just not, oh, sorry, just the single Orisa shield.
And now he switches off of Widow, goes over to Tracer, and they're able to just land the hook, the halt, and then just a lot of damage coming down from London already. You know, Philadelphia with only 1 minute and 30 left on the clock. Prophet sitting up top.
This is just going to wreck them. I mean, you can just use ultimates like this. Are they going to be ready for an ultimate? Oh, Dayfly! You know what they say about Dayflies, Matt? They're only alive for 1 day. I think Dayfly's been alive for about 20 seconds on this map so far. That's been pretty nasty. And that's all it takes. Get rid of the Mercy. It's now the Spitfire can just, you know, slowly ration out these ultimates to last them 1 minute, and the Fusion are done. This is probably the most comprehensive and well thought out destruction of an attacking team I've seen on this map.
And you've held on to both support ults for the London Spitfire. You're going to have Supercharger Whole Hog here. So, I mean, what? You got Shadowburn with a Dragon Blade, Poco with a self-destruct. You're not going to have
bored.
So Philly can opt to not challenge the high ground here and maybe go play for the point. Like, I feel like just keep going up to the high ground over and over again. You haven't really been able to get anything done.
Let's see if this works, though. Carpe goes down early, gets picked up by Birdring in the mix, and Dosen just kind of wanted to press a button. I think he just was, you know, keen to make something happen in this fight. Supercharger is down. Self-destruct that managed to fellow there. Birdring finds a kill at the end of the fight there, Poco. Okay, if we don't get to kill at the start and end of a fight, you know that the defensive team is pretty comfortable. Fury tries for some right clicks there, boom. Not today, my friend. Fury has a chance to take a breather. He'll be okay. Hoping maybe just to stay low health for long enough to bait Carpe in for the illusion of a finish or something like that. Not much time left. 10 seconds. Philadelphia Fusion are being very, very frustrated. The door's just been slammed straight in their face. Do they go for something different? Fraggy's already half health. This may be over as it is. Birdwing looks for Shadowburn. Why not find him here? Now they're on the point at least. So the Fusion going to force the Spitfire off this high ground and try and do something about it. Sound Barrier, Shadowburn gets caught up. Most of his health is already gone. So is he. He's down. Now the Riptide going to come in from Prophet. He's found a support. It's all just too simple for the Spitfire. Gesture on the point. He'll have a shield in just a moment. Going to use the Hulk. Just going to be pulling in these players. It was Carpe still able to get away. He has a pulse bomb. The mat's going to be him on his own. He's down. That is not a good look for the Fusion at all.
That was dominant from the London Spitfire there on point A defense. It seemed like from the Philadelphia Fusion towards the end, they were really playing around, use the sound barrier, keep Shadowburn alive with the Dragon Blade, force out the Valkyrie from the side of the Spitfire. Then after Valkyrie wears off, maybe you're able to get a big Dragon Blade. What happens? They use Valkyrie, they kill Shadowburn right away. Not able to bring him back into the fight, doesn't get a use of the blade.
Oh, well, now we're starting to see some of the cracks in the armor on the side of the Fusion. The Spitfire are looking nice and shiny, well polished up in the hangar overnight. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back. The halftime break, just a sec.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Omen by HP and by Intel. And we are back. It's halftime between the Philadelphia Fusion and the London Spitfire. Currently, it's London on match point with a 2-0 advantage. Philadelphia Fusion, though, is coming into this match undefeated. They now are still in it. They have to win the next two if they want to force a Game 5 tiebreaker. Before we get to those games and our breakdown of the first two, we want to talk a little bit about the Philadelphia fans. They had to wait quite a while before they got their first glimpses of this Fusion squad. But after seeing their performance against the Houston Outlaws, it seems the wait was totally worth it.
Rocket on towards Shadowburn. But Clockwork's already fallen to the Russian player's hand, and he's found himself a second pipeline stuff from Shadowburn, and this is beautiful. It's a bit of a do-si-do. If the Houston Outlaws though, they come out in front for now. Going to be the Valkyrie Lynx is going to be very careful. Chilla gets another kill in that fight. The Marie! Let's go! Yeah! Billy! Woo! Billy! Too late. Raucus gets there with the aforementioned Transcend. Finally gets to use it, but no one's there to see how fabulous he looks. There it is, the Fusion get it done. Locked into the Overwatch lead.
Worth the wait. We're going to cut out of that one early because we have so much to cover here at halftime. Before we get to the breakdown, real quick shout out to Jeremy. He's back in the audience. This is his 4th day in a row, and he is definitely one of the loudest Philadelphia Fusion fans we have here in the venue. Let's get into the action here, starting with Junkertown, though. Very unique strategies used on both sides, and I want to start this off here with the London's attack, because when you watch Junkertown, you're so used to seeing Orisa throwing up a shield, maybe a Reinhardt helping protect the Bastion. That is kind of the key component to the initial attacks. When London Spitfire came in, though, they brought in a whole new DPS, Crumbs.
Exactly, they brought in the Reaper, and it's a pick that's not so new to Junkertown. We have seen it before, but it's still making its rounds in this specific map. And what this hero does is that you basically nullify anybody jumping onto that car. You saw that an attempt at a defense being the quad tank. You can deal with the quad tank, and what really matters is that you can build up your ult charge in the first point. You have great lines of sight for you to teleport to and also build up that ult charge, and by the time you hit the second point, you got your ulti, and you're very difficult to deal with, and that's why we see an 87% completion rate in that map on the first 2 points.
Sideshow, we saw some really impressive individual play coming in from the Philadelphia Fusion, but it seemed on a macro level, when it came to the compositions, they were starting to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, it was kind of strange coming out from the Philadelphia Fusion. I think this goes a little bit towards what we were saying about potential lack of practice or coming in with a brand new roster that you have to kind of start at base 0. They were running the Reinhardt on defense, which we don't see very often on Junkertown, because you can run things like the Reaper into it, and you can run the Bastion, and it just melts those shields. And Fraggy wasn't having the best time in the world. Now, they tried that on the offense as well, and here you can see that he's pushing into a quad tank. Fraggy is so aggressive, but he just gets dominated there. He's trying to push into a team that can hook him as soon as his shield goes down. So they know that Fraggy's going to be running the Reinhardt. They know that Fraggy's going to be trying to swing because that's how he plays the Reinhardt. And then they're going to abuse it by having that hook and taking him out of the fight very early on. And they stalled a lot of time using that.
Exactly. What they also knew is that the first 2 points of Junkertown is all about time. It doesn't really matter if you can hold them or not. It's realistically not going to happen. So what they do is just try to stall, buy as much time as possible so that by the time that Philly has to attack on the final point, they're against the clock, and you saw that they were just barely able to defend it because they Philadelphia Fusion team did not have enough time left in the bank because of that first point defense from London.
It was a really impressive start for London. You saw Philly start to slow them down, though, on this third and final point. And I want to ask about the composition changes that we saw from the Philadelphia Fusion as the game went on. If you're looking to deal with the dive pressure that we're seeing out of the London Spitfire, what is your best comp that you've seen out of them so far, Sideshow?
Well, if you're playing on a map like Junkertown where you can play these kind of Orisa Roadhog compositions with either a Bastion or a Reaper, that can be very effective at shutting down players like that. But as soon as you go to the larger maps, even like Horizon, which we saw in the second map, but certainly as we go towards the second half of this game, where you've got Ilios, you've got Numbani, these are fairly open, and it is difficult to establish a position to kind of counter the dive with those Reaper or Bastion picks. They just get picked off from distance. So at that point, they have to start being clever about their strategy. You can run dive against dive and still have a good time. They've still got a lot of very talented players. So it's not so much compositional, it's more playstyle. They have to try and leap backwards onto their own teammates, defend and peel with their tanks.
It was really fun for me to watch Carpe in particular. You saw him and Shadowburn, those DPS players for Philly, constantly switching up their heroes. And when Carpe thought he had the answer to the Genji Tracer, he went to a McCree for those flashbangs. Immediately, you saw the Diva from Fury up in his face, eating all of those flashbangs, and then it was followed up by a Pulse Bomb. Incredible knowledge, and you can see the preparation coming in from London Spitfire. They know what they have in the hero pool for the Philadelphia Fusion, and they're prepared to shut it down. Let's take it now to our second game here in London. They look fantastic on Junkertown, but a really strange start to their attack when it came to Horizon.
Yeah, it kind of looked like they were trying to go for B before they went for A. I think Mitch called that one out. So here we've got a little replay of what went on so we can break it down for you. So we've got it paused right at the beginning here, and you can see that this is where the majority of the London team are set up. And with those quad tanks that they've got up at the top here, with the Moira in particular, who can provide so much of that healing, they're going to push down through this left-hand side, and they're aiming to come around the side and then finish up on the point over here. And that counters fairly well the defense of Philadelphia Fusion, who are all positioned on the high ground up top with sight lines for their Widowmaker and for their Junkrat. But it doesn't go too well for them. Even though the plan is fairly decent, you can see here that Birdring gets juggled up, gets hooked. He gets brought in, brought in, and then concussion mine twice upwards, and then dealt with a crazy performance by Shadowburn to be able to get that pick along with Fraggy. And then as we roll it forwards again, you'll see that Carpe gets another pick here onto the Moira, and at that point, it's curtains for this push for a London Spitfire. Even though their plan is good, they're now stuck in a situation way behind the enemy team because they've gone on such a long flank, and instead of attempting to bring the fight towards Philadelphia Fusion, they try and back off, consolidate their position, and maybe wait for Gesture and the Moira to come back in, but by that point it's too late, and it just leaves them wasting so much time back to B.
Exactly. Conceptually, I think the plan from London Spitfire here was great. How to get somebody off the high ground. The high ground defense on Horizon's almost always going to be in that top corner, so they figure we're, instead of just sending like the Tracer to try to distract somebody, we're going to send the whole team because we're running the quad
And then they have to drop to the point.
Exactly. You have to drop to the point because you have all those tanks with Lucio and Mora. It's just way too much healing. So it is a good idea, but then we're going to contrast that with what the Philadelphia Fusion tried to do against the exact same defense, and it just is not fare well, because what we get to see from them here is that they're going to actually go for the dive. You see the setup here, but they're diving against a Junkrat here. It's a Winston and Diva trying to deal with this. They have nobody distracting on the flank. It's 5 people here, and you have Widowmaker really far back against an Orisa shield. This dive is never going to work, and that's exactly what happened.
And you can make small adjustments to this dive so that it does work. We've seen Boston Uprising, they send their Genji player around the flank to distract at the back, or you can send a Tracer onto the point, but you need some kind of other distraction, right?
Exactly. You send somebody to the point, points ticking, and then London has to make the decision, who are we sending down here? Are we going to send the Diva to try to deal with this? A healer maybe? Do we need 1 person, 2 people? So you have to put them in the situation as opposed to trying to go to them and take the fight exactly on the terms where London won, which is why they're set up there. So it's a conceptual play that I think we can expect Philadelphia Fusion to get down in the future, but for right now, it's still a young team that you can expect them to struggle here.
All right, guys, let's wrap up this segment with a big question I have coming into this match. One of our concerns for Philadelphia Fusion was the team cohesion. We're definitely seeing that from the London Spitfire. The individual talents can't shine if you're just getting overwhelmed by an entire squad. And I want to ask about the decision to put Dave Fly. He's a support player in the lineup for the first time. Normally it's either Neptuno or Joe Meister, who the coaches, which back in the preseason said were the shot callers from the team. Do you think there may be an issue with a missing shot caller for the lineup right now?
It's possible. We've spoken to the guys behind Philadelphia Fusion, and Dayfly has pretty much only just arrived with them. He hasn't had too much practice time compared to the Europeans who've been playing over in Europe before the Overwatch League. The guy plays similar hero pools to Neptuno, so I think you've got to read into it a little bit and say that maybe the coaching staff are more happy with how Dayfly's playing on Mercy, which we've seen a lot of him. Maybe they were expecting to play Quad Tank, and Dayfly plays a very good Moira. We don't really know what the situation is here, but it's definitely a good question to look at the synergy of the team and wonder whether Dayfly's calling, because remember, he is a Korean with not the best English skills in the world, will be able to match up with Neptuno's play.
All right, that is going to do it for our halftime show. On the other side of our break, we're going to Ilios. If you're a Widowmaker player or a Pharah player, stay tuned. We have some stars coming up for you next. Is brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, fire up your engines and put your Patara earrings on because this game is far from done. Don't bother, you wouldn't know the reference. 2-0 so far in the series. Matt, you were probably driving trucks back then, I think, during the time that show was on. But we're now in a position where the Philadelphia Fusion have been shown to be lacking in that previous map. They struggled, they looked frustrated, they didn't have the answer to what the London Spitfire were putting up against them.
Yeah, just an extremely coordinated London Spitfire team. A great strategy there on defense on Horizon Lunar Colony. Going into Ilios, we'll see what the Philadelphia Fusion decide to do. There are some points here where you can see Shadowburn run the Pharah. Made an impact yesterday in his match against Houston on the Pharah.
Seemed to be the dominant one in that matchup, there's no doubt about it. But what about here? What about up against the Spitfire?
Yeah, I mean, well, like you can see, the Spitfire pull out maybe Roadhog yet again. It's tough because you're going to have to see them the side of the Fusion, get out of their comfort zone a little bit, with that Genji Tracer combination, because it seems like it's being countered quite well by the Spitfire.
But it's not as if it's a specific hero choice on the side of London to counter out.
It's just a play. It seems like more of a play style thing.
Definitely feels that way. And when we talked about it earlier on about, using a Genji Tracer to pull, people back to the point and all that kind of stuff. Not an option here. I mean, it's tough to sort of put a carrot on a string in front of the enemy team. You kind of got to go in and brawl it out. But that's what we're here to see. We're here to see some back and forth fighting here. And we're going to head over towards Ilios because, Matt, life's a beach. Let's get it started.
Still have some time for the teams to mix around with their comps, but probably see Lucio here. Lucio we see in control more than any other game mode. Obviously, you can get the speed boost right onto the point, get some of that position a little bit faster than the other. We see for the side of the Philly Fusion, it looks like Shadowburn will be running the Pharah. No Pharah on the side of the London Spitfire. They'll have to go with Birdring on McCree, and then they'll have Bedosa playing Zenyatta. So it'll be those two players plus Fury on the Diva really going after that Pharah from Shadowburn.
I like this as a look from the Spitfire. Shadowburn's definitely going to be tested. If he tries to get into the back line, Harpe also could be in danger. But we've seen Pharah Tracer combos really pressure McCree's out well before. I like to think back to the Shanghai Dragons match from day one. We'll see. It's not a good one from Undead. Probably one he'd sooner forget.
And no Zen on the side of the Philly Fusion. Boombox, who's a very good Zenyatta player, he'll be playing the Lucio in this lineup. It's interesting because you have Joe Meister on the bench, who's a traditionally very talented Lucio player and a good call.
Boombox again, normally on the Zenyatta, I guess they need to go with the Mercy here. That's a look they need. But the Pharah Bird Ring, the flash is there though. Boombox again, very, very tricky to get himself out of that position. For a Pharah, when there's a Diva right up his rear side, so it seems as if he went for the wrong target there, or perhaps just wanted to try and get an easy bit of damage down. Nass is down, Carpe has a bit of space to work here. You can see he's even able to go and get that health pack. The rest of his team though is not looking so stellar. Poco being desuited, the rest of them coming back in now. So they re-engage a fight with two supports and a Winston. Carpe off one towards the side, trying to chase down Jester. He actually finds him, so there might be something to this now. He needs to get on towards Bird Ring though, that's a really important 1v1.
And Dayfly does get his Valkyrie, so could see that be used here for the Philadelphia Fusion if needed. It'll be a self-destruct that comes out from Fury. Gonna try and get back in his mech, but Carpe deletes him before making that happen. So you do see it's going to be the Deadeye from Birdring that takes out Dayfly during his Valkyrie, so that's a huge kill there from Birdring.
I mean, while we're watching Carpe's perspective, it's important to notice that, Dayfly gets picked up by Deadeye, Carpe now down to Birdring, so that's his second big kill of the fight. And also Bedosin picks off Shadowburn, who on the Pharah has not been featuring very heavily in the kill feed so far. It's not quite gelling for the Fusion still here. Perhaps the threat of the McCree is keeping Shadowburn to very fine sight lines and preventing him from getting optimal damage in this fight.
It is, because yesterday when we saw that Shadowburn was doing a ton of damage on the Pharah, you had Carpe finishing all those kills off. Shadowburn finishes the match with about 30% of overall team damage. Right now, Carpe actually has more damage than Shadowburn. So that tells me that they're able to just keep kind of poking away, getting Shadowburn's health a little bit low, where he's not able to put down that consistent damage. Birdring with a flashbang, a headshot onto Carpe, takes out that Tracer, so not going to have the Tracer be able to finish off a lot of the damage that Shadowburn's putting down.
So we're watching Birdring's perspective right now. He has not had to roll backwards once in the entire time we've been on first person with him. He's been left unattended, free enough to move around the court. Like the fact that Carpe didn't expect him to be there kind of gives you the impression that the Philadelphia Fusion have done a bad job of keeping tabs on the most dangerous DPS hero on the side of the Spitfire. Birdring has been giving rule of the roost.
I mean, you kind of look at the positioning here on my mini-map, and you have Shadowburn just playing all the way far in that pack, because Birdring just keeps getting up, putting a shot into him, getting the Discord on him, and just pushing him back just further and further and further away. It's difficult for him to make an impact on Pharah at that moment in time. Birdring's going to have a Deadeye here coming into this next fight.
And that's dangerous.
Yeah,
Valkyrie, Shadowburn.
Yeah, Valkyrie coming up soon. You could be able to get that Pharah Mercy combo out of the sky.
Birdring, oh, he's trying to come out from just a cheeky little spot there. He almost takes down Dayfly. You see how far back he sits. He's playing safe. He doesn't find the kill, but Dayfly gets finished off. The damage was enough though, so that, you know, Gesture could jump in and finish the kill. However, the barrage coming out from Shadowburn was at least able to get the responsive kill on towards that Winston. Down the well goes Prophet. I'm sorry, Lassie, you're not going to be able to chase that one up.
Well, the tanks for the London Spitfire dive in and get Dayfly. You know, they eliminate him, they get him really weak. And what happens there, Shadowburn actually uses the Rocket Barrage, takes out both tanks. He actually gets the kill on the Gesture, D-Max Fury, and then takes him out. So you lose your tanks on the point there for London. You did have Frankie drop towards the end of that fight. He's not going to be there at the beginning of this one. It'll be Dayfly using the Valkyrie, trying to keep members from the Philly Fusion up until you get Fraggy back in.
Shadowburn committed really heavily to try and find Nuss there, and in the time that he was being juked, Birdring and Prophet find kills themselves. So now it's Philadelphia Fusion down to a skeleton crew of heroes. Fraggy falling, but Docent's having a huge impact so far in this round. Shadowburn, all he can try and do is a bit of, you know, skeet shooting at this stage, but Fury's staying healthy enough. You can see that very, very heavily Dayfly is being pressured away. Boombox has already fallen. Shadowburn, what are your options here? Again, trying to get a little bit of damage. He's still being healed, but Dayfly is down now. Gesture picks him off. It's a swing of the fist with a Primal Rage. That's got to be over for the Philadelphia Fusion here. I don't know how you come back from that.
The London Spitfire did such a tremendous job putting somebody in Shadowburn's face at all times, not allowing him to get that free damage playing Pharah. We saw time and time again. It was like Discord and a shot from Birdring, then it was Fury jumping up on the D.Va, and we even saw Gesture get into the mix, you know, quite often, you know, going up, playing up against that Pharah on the Winston.
You can almost hear the Philadelphia Fusion trying to think their way out of this situation. They play so slow. Would they lose a hero? Like, a good example is this, right? The Fusion lose a player and they stop the push on Horizon, right? The Spitfire lose 2 players and they push into the enemy team's point B just before taking point A. It's like, it's very, very easy to throw a roadblock out in front of the Fusion. And while they're trying to, you know, mentally, you know, use some acrobatics to get around it, it's just more percentage on this kind of map. You have to be decisive on a control point map or the game is going to be lost before you come up with a solution.
Just so much aggression coming out from the London Spitfire. While Birdring on the Widowmaker, Carpe playing Widowmaker for the Philly Fusion. Just be kind of like a dance between these two players.
I want to see no respect
find
from
each
Philly.
other.
I want to see zero respect from the Philadelphia Fusion, but Carpe just gets vaporized. They're under the scrutiny of Birdring. It's like he didn't even know he was there. The reaction was insane. Fraggy down now. All over for the Fusion for this first fight.
And when London announced this roster, I was, as a DPS player who only plays DPS, who insta-locks it every game, I was excited to see the potential of if you had Birdring and Prophet playing together at one time, and to see it happen now and to see how crazy it is and how sick it is with not even probably a lot of actual game time playing it, right? I mean, obviously they're scrimming, but they're not regular season matches, can't match that intensity. To see them kind of work off each other this well already, it's got to be scary for a lot of other teams.
And look how this slows the game down. Look how that first pick really just throws a spanner in the works for the Fusion. Losing Shadowburn now, again, they've got to back away. They know that the Spitfire is so strong that even, you know, man-to-man, they might struggle to beat them. They know that a man down, they're definitely not going to beat them on towards this point.
Well, I remember we casted, I believe it was Seoul, New York during the preseason, and
it looked like this.
Yeah, when they were able to get so many picks, Seoul, it just forced New York to just kind of wait and wait and wait. They were actually never really able to get a play towards the point. And look at this, I mean, the picks from Birdring and Fury here early. What do you do? Just what do you do? I mean, now they have so many ultimates here in London, right? I mean, you have your Valkyrie, you have Transcendence, you built up, you know, a large chunk of these ultimates that even if Billy comes in and uses a ton, there's so many to counter with on the side of the Spitfire.
It's like Carpe's trying to get into the cookie jar, and every time he gets close, Birdring just slaps his hand back and says, not now. You have to eat your greens first. Carpe has just not been finding these picks on the Widowmaker, and it's been all too easy for Birdring. And again, it's a clear skill golf, or at least performance golf between those two so far in this round. Birdring finds Boombox there. He hasn't found Carpe yet, but he doesn't need to. This will still slow the Fusion down significantly.
And all you had to do there was have Prophet use his pulse bomb there. He was able to take out Dayfly. Now you still have both support ults here online, but it's going to be Gesture taking Carpe out at the beginning. So now at 88% and counting, what do you do if you're Philly? You have to kind of make a play towards the point. They're going to use their Valkyrie here a little bit early, trying to force Transcendence out here. Is Gesture jumping right on the Boombox. Boombox takes him out with such low HP. That's a big kill.
Talk about ride the lightning for Boombox, but it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. There's these individual moments where perhaps the Fusion is showing us the capacity to challenge the Spitfire, but they are few, they are far between, and that was probably one of the quickest maps we have seen so far.
They just were never able to get towards the point.
It's a different game when you've got a Widowmaker dominating like that.
So they did have Fraggy actually pop Primal Rage, and he goes into the back, and you thought he would force overtime, and I think he actually went a little bit too far, ended up going for Bird Ring and getting off the point.
London looking very, very good right now. Perhaps a clean sheet on the cards for them. We'll see after the break if that will be the case. Can Philly bring it back? We'll find out soon.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Intel and Omen by HP.
During halftime, our desk raised the question who is doing the shot calling for the Philadelphia Fusion now that we have Dayfly in for Neptuno. So during the third map, I actually went into their dugout and talked to their team and asked this very question. They said that shot calling is a shared duty on that team. Different roles are actually filling that. And the reason why we're seeing Dayfly at the moment is going up against the London Spitfire, a team of this caliber. They wanted to bring their A game, and Dayfly is their best mercy. Let's see what they have in store for us for that fourth map. And for that, I'm sending it back to our casters, Mr. X and Uber.
Thank you very much, Zoe. And interesting to get a little bit of insight from the Spitfire on how it works. We hear this a lot, like a democratic calling structure for a lot of teams. Some teams seem to think that it's great. Some teams seem to feel that it can be to their detriment. I know we were talking earlier on, though, saying that like we're hearing a lot that tanks are mostly responsible in this day and age for the calling on a lot of these teams.
Which kind of makes sense because they're the ones kind of initiating most of the time, right?
Sure.
They can call the target, the Zen can apply the Discord, and then you can get the DPS players to just kind of funnel on in. I think with the DPS players calling, you have to play a little bit further up, right? You have to be able to see, what's going on, exactly where players are positioning. Tanks are there in that front line.
It used to be Lucio. I remember when Lucio was so prevalent across the meta, it was purely because you could see the entire battlefield and maybe make a more informed decision about where people should be going or the setup. But now, tanks, because it reduces maybe input lag, it's like the Lucio player would tell the tank to dive, the tank would dive. Now the tank can be mid-dive and already call the target. 3 maps down and 1 to go. 4 maps had to be played regardless. And again, for the Fusion, these points matter. Getting a map now will be very, very crucial as we get closer to the end of this stage.
Yeah, just to clarify, the London Spitfire win this series, but we play that 4th map because it's so important. It's a tiebreaker. How many map points you can get towards the end of the season. May not matter much right now, right? So to speak, but later in the season, you have a team like the Philadelphia Fusion, who a lot of us think could be on the cusp of playoff contention. A map win here against a team like London would be huge because how many other teams are going to take a map off of London, right?
Couple have so far, but as London start to really rev up towards the end of the stage, I think that'll be a bit of a different story. So Numbani going to be our last map here of the series, and again we're hearing about Dayfly, the best Mercy on this team, allegedly speaking, although Cheetah had a great day yesterday, even had a couple moments where he's getting 3Ks. I know that doesn't make you a good Mercy player necessarily, but it was fun to watch. So they mix things up here a little bit, and they're just not looking remotely as effective. And it makes you wonder, what is the skill gap then between teams like these guys and the Outlaws, and then top teams with predominant Korean presence?
But if you're the Philadelphia Fusion, you can come into the game against the Outlaws, right? You could run a team out there, with Neptuno in it, that you feel really confident, well practiced in, right? And you can get a win against Houston, and then you come in here against Philly. You want Dayfly eventually to be that Mercy that's always in the lineup. You can play him here against London. You still have a 1-on-1 week, right? 1-on-1 still pretty good. You get a good win over Houston. You play London pretty tough on a lot of these maps. You get Dayfly some play at the top competition. I think that's kind of a win overall for everybody. Something interesting, I was looking at the stats. We see Birdring here on offense, playing the 76 at the beginning could potentially change. The last map we saw him doing a lot of work on Widow. It's only like a 44% scoped accuracy, which we've seen in some of the graphics, like a lot higher numbers, but it's 38% critical hits. So it tells you he's just landing a lot of headshots.
Right, I have to say that that's 38% of 44. So I mean, it's a couple percentages there. It's not necessarily just 38% in general, but something to bear in mind. The guy was really making some big kills happen. This is really interesting though. Doomfist for Carpe here on defense. So again, maybe hoping that the Spitfire are going to push into main as a unit, but Carpe can get across these platforms pretty easily, can pin someone up against the wall pretty comfortably.
I think where Doomfist can excel on this map is when they try and go over towards that mega health pack underneath, or they try and push main, or even up here on the high ground on the right-hand side. That's really where Doomfist can cause a lot of damage. But you see charging up the rocket punch, going to get a D-Mech there on the Fury. The tough part will be, right, when you have those heroes at range, like a 76, able to take them out. Or if they go over towards the high ground where Boombox is here, not an opportunity to get those one-shot kills. They'll get the nano boost here on a Shadowburn, as he's going to earn himself a blade. He's going to jump up top. He'll take out Birdring.
Yeah, I mean, Shadowburn there gets the nano boost slightly before he had the Dragon Blade. Boombox had to give off something before he left, so it's fair enough. It has held up the Spitfire for now, though. You notice that Shadowburn is still relatively in good shape, gets rid of the enemy 76. This Primal Rage is pretty much after the fact. You can see the Jester just jumps out. He realizes that this push is coming down.
No, but they're going to have everybody on full strength here, so they actually kill Dayfly. Now everybody except for Prophet is in this mid-street. You see Prophet on the point there, they're darting behind enemy lines. The Transcendence comes out from London because they know Dayfly not in the equation here for Philadelphia, just comes off spawn.
Shadowburn, dicing with death there. There was a Bionic Field placed down, and it's going to be tough to burst Birdring through it. He's almost got his tack visor. The Fusion have been essentially pushed off the point. Remember, last game I talked about no respect. This is a lot of respect coming from the Philly team here. Really just stepping off the point. They realize the fight's lost. They also realize they can't get back, but they're going to give the Spitfire a lot of room to set up for this second stage push. Boombox switches now over towards Zenyatta for stage 2. Obviously, keeping Ana for that doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense.
That was such a sick play from Gesture. He was able to use the Primal Rage, kill Dayfly, and then a lot of times they'll stay on the point a little bit longer. You know those Winstons with Primal Rage will die. He actually opts to go back out towards that mid-street bus, gets healed up. You still have Prophet there to bring the players for Philly onto the point, because he's...
There was a miscommunication at the start of the fight, though. I think Fraggy thought that he and Shadowburn were going to chase more kills. Fraggy got picked off while Shadowburn backed away. There was already a 6v5 situation in that fight, so... And Shadowburn had already used his Dragon Blade. They didn't have a lot of ultimates, especially after Boombox had used his, so... Yeah, perhaps a miscommunication.
They didn't have the nano to even like put on a Fraggy, potentially keep him alive a little bit.
He was on his own. He's just going to get bursted down. He's playing up against Zenyatta and Diversity, so it's going to be tough. Gesture falls, though. Speaking of Zenyatta's, Boombox opens this fight up very, very well. Primal Rage for Fraggy doesn't net him a kill, but does force Birdring into the backline, reducing his effectiveness in terms of damaging more important targets. Now the Tactical Visor comes in, though. Who's going to block this one? It looks like, for the most part, Poco has absorbed some of the damage there. Korean Future Dyson has been cutting down the effectiveness of this Tac Visor, but Fraggy still gets picked off somehow in amongst the defense matrix. Profit on the Boombox, and despite Birdring falling late in the fight, this Transcendence is very interesting. Perhaps it was forced out from Bedosin, but I think it was essentially a 5v1 situation for the Spitfire. They're still up to go for it. They probably want the Transcendence actually for the last fight of this stage and not there.
Yeah, because now you have Shadowburn with the Dragon Blade on the other side, Poco with a self-destruct. You could use it to get onto the cart here, maybe stall it if they can make it back before London can take point B. And there you see Fraggy jump right onto the cart. That was very close though, but Bedosin takes out Carpe. Birdring switches over from 76 to Genji. Just dashes on through two members of Philly. London putting on a clinic here.
Unfortunate for Philadelphia, the timing just wasn't quite in their favor. You saw that Frankie barely got onto the payload there. No one else from that team was actually going to get there besides him. So it would have been one man against the world anyway. And the Spitfire, 4 minutes, Matt, on the clock. Got some momentum here. The Fusion have ultimates, though.
You can see where it benefits having hero overlap between your DPS players, because instead of having Prophet, have to give up his percentage towards that pulse bomb and have him go over to Genji and Birdring switch over to Tracer. You can have Birdring run the Genji as well, as I don't know how Poco's getting.
How does he do this?
Here,
we saw a stat before, by the way. He has way more kills per ultimate, I think, than anyone else so far. So that's impressive. He picks up that one kill, but Nussel's going to be able to res it up here. What's Carpe trying to make happen? Oh, it's tough. The Shurikens catch him out. Philadelphia looked very much spread thinly. Boombox is going to get cut down, despite the fact that he was being healed by Dayfly, no less. That's going to be very, very frustrating. Even your backline has no support. They have no defense there. Diffusion are nowhere to be seen. Not sure what the go is right now. They're in tatters, they're in disarray, and the Spitfire are more than happy to line them up and knock them down.
That was quick. That was pretty quick.
Yeah, time-wise, scary. Look, Numbani is one of the longest maps by distance of payload travel, and that really looked very, very commanding here from the Spitfire. I mean, first point hold was okay, Matt, I think, but after that, they never got back into the game.
Yeah, I think, Philly's best, defensive stand was on that first point, going in from point A to point B. There was that one fight. Carpe actually uses his Tac Visor, and then, I think Birdring just holds on to his a little bit longer. They don't have any support ults for the side of Philly. And then he comes around the corner by the bus, and they're able to take him out. And then I think they actually caught them off guard by, as soon as Birdring uses the Tac Visor, he switches off the Genji. They dive in to try and actually contest it. And it's just so much damage from Birdring and Prophet right there with the Discords on the Fraggy that they're not even able to contest it, right? Fraggy just dives on in. I feel like it just ended with him. I think Carpe falls there as well. So they send in the Winston and the Tracer to contest. They don't stay alive long enough.
It's clear to see that the dive needs a little bit of work here on the side of the Philadelphia Fusion. At least all the pieces of the puzzle aren't there when they need to be. And again, dive is a fragile approach to the game. If one of your elements isn't working, then the whole thing's not going to work.
And Philly, look, they didn't have the benefits of being here for the preseason, right? They've been practicing at home, scrimming, so there's a lot of positive things with Philly that you've seen thus far. And then the little minor things they can definitely tweak over the next week or so. They can definitely be a very strong team, because you already see the talent on this lineup.
Plenty of it, Matt. Talent in spades, but Spitfire doesn't really care about talent. They don't really care about Twitter followers either.
They have some talent of their own.
No doubt about it. 2 rosters worth, in fact. So Fury and us out early. Again, a bit of information to be gained here if there's anything that needs to be changed, especially if the Spitfire bring the Ana in, perhaps they might need to change tack. But it'll be Fraggy on the Winston. Let's scrutinize this Philadelphia Fusion dive, Matt. Let's see if they can get the elements that they require in the right timing.
He's going to try and challenge this high ground. Fraggy's going to try and get the 76 off. He gets booped down, so Fraggy now, get full spot yet. Poco actually get up top, and he actually takes out Gesture and trying to make it out of harm's way. Prophet chases him down. He'll be able to get Fraggy out of the fight. Shadowburn, though, doing some damage here, still working with Poco.
Okay, so perhaps the Fusion are trying to take advantage of some organized chaos to a degree here, but they haven't managed to capture the point there. It doesn't start great, I suppose. Losing Dayfly so early in the fight wasn't good. You saw Fraggy trying to run back to the safety of Boombox, but even Boombox wasn't able to heal him quickly enough before he got picked off.
The benefits for the Philly Fusion with that push is that they did force London Spitfire to spread out probably a little bit more than they would have liked, right? You had Prophet had to work all the way over towards that mega health pack. You had Birdring have to back up. You had to have one player on the point for London. So you did force them to split up a little bit. Don't expect that to happen yet again, though. We'll see the dive come in here from the Philly Fusion yet again.
Nope, that's not a great start either. There's a Boombox. Okay, so if you're playing a dive composition and the first two people to die are Boombox and Carpe, it's probably not the best start. You've lost your Zen so early on into the piece. At this stage, the Philadelphia Fusion probably have to content themselves with building up some ultimates and trying just to brute force into this first point. This can be one of the hardest parts of this map to take, no doubt about it.
Yeah, Prophet hits a pulse bomb on a Poco that desmechs him. So Poco jumps off the side instead of going back, switching off of D.Va, then back to D.Va, because he's already 91% to a self-destruct. So he wants to jump off the side, get that mech back.
I want to see the first kill of the fight go to the Fusion here. Theoretically, it shouldn't be that hard if they can dive onto the squishy target, but they're looking for it. You see Shadowburn looks up at the balcony, goes, where's Iana? I can't see the 76 either. The Spitfire is staying hidden for the most part. It's impossible for the Fusion to get information, and now the Spitfire spring forth and have a dive of their own. They take the Fusion by surprise. Again, they get a pick in that fight, but it's actually Gesture to go down first. With Boombox up, it's a man advantage for the Fusion now as they press forward. Shadowburn's going to drag a blade here, but that attack visor could be pretty rough over the top. Vidocin down to Fraggy. Shadowburn waiting for his opportunity to go in there.
It's a tremendous play by Nuss on the Mercy. He actually pops his Valkyrie and somehow is able to make it all the way down that main street and get Gesture back up and then work all the way back to get Vidocin. So fantastic Mercy play there by Nuss, able to get those reses pretty safely. Birdring pops attack visor, help put that fight away. Now it'll be Philly Fusion with some time draining off the clock here. They'll have about a minute to work with. Some ultimates here online for the Spitfire though.
The Fusion know exactly what they want to do, and they actually know half of how they want to do it. But the Spitfire aren't standing in your classic Mickey Mouse positions, right? They're not standing up on the balcony with an Ana and a 76 together. They're staying hidden until the last moment when they want to show themselves.
So actually, you can see where Birdring is from Poco's POV. He's actually up top in that left. They are trying to get the 76 down from the high ground, but Birdring is just kind of hiding and lurking, and then coming out once the fight starts, and that just changes where Philly decides to go at that point.
See, no picks yet for the Fusion. This is where it gets dangerous for a dive comp. It forces them to use the Transcendence, which does very little because Dayfly still drops despite that. Shadowburn's forced to back away. It's evident that he used his Dragon Blade in that fight. You have used 3 ultimates in this fight. None of those ultimates have gotten you any kills.
And the entire time, Fraggy is primal raged up top, trying to knock Birdring back, getting him out of the equation. And then Birdring just runs away, loops all the way back around to his supports back by the spawn. It's just been tremendous placement of players, map positioning here from the London Spitfire.
Right. It's checkers from the Fusion, it's 4D underwater, upside down, inside out, chess from the Spitfire. Definitely ahead of the game right now, making it impossible for the Fusion to get the engagement they want. Self-destruct here for Poco, everyone's just going to sit around the bonfire and sing Kumbaya. And now it's time for the Spitfire to go back in. Birdring for the high ground, has his tactical visor here. This might be a bit tough. Forced away though. A lot of healing from Nuss, and again, Poco getting chunked down. The defense matrix no longer going to be a factor. The Philadelphia Fusion are going to fizzle out. There's not much to be said about this one. Dayfly desperately trying to bring a couple players back, but he's forced into the middle of the fight. It's a no-go for him, a non-starter. And for the Fusion, it's a failure to launch. The Spitfire are out there doing aerial acrobatics.
The positioning from the London Spitfire on defense there was amazing. Time and time again, they just changed up the positioning of where they were playing Birdring on the Soldier 76, and that didn't allow the Philadelphia Fusion to get a good read on where he was on the high ground, dive him effectively. We saw time and time again, just working their way up the mid-street, trying to figure out where the players were. We're not able to do so there. Tremendous defense from London.
A lot of material and tape for the Fusion to go back over in that last match. I'm quite sure that Coach Kirby and co will be working on that one. Hazeby scratching his head. The Spitfire looking a little bit too good here. The Fusion, a lot of work to be done. Well, that's it for this match here, and quite a way to start off the day, but we've got more intense matches coming up soon. We're going to go to a quick break, and when we return, we'll be back with the analyst desk to get their take on this one-sided schlacking.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Omen by HP and by Intel. Our 13th match of the regular season is now complete. It's the London Spitfire walking away with a hot 4-0 sweep over the Philadelphia Fusion. Welcome back to the post-game report. I'm your host, Chris Puckett, and we've got our analyst desk once again. We've got Crumbs alongside Sideshow, and a lot to talk about here as we break down our third map. Coming in, it was a 2-0 lead for the London Spitfire. They really started to gain a lot of momentum in that second game, and we were worried for what Philadelphia Fusion was going to be able to bring to the table on Ilios. But we did say this could be a decent map if Tracers are able to play the way that Carpe showed us in the first half, and if the FAR was able to have a big impact. But it seemed that Philadelphia Fusion was never able to get quite comfortable enough with their own playstyle because there were opponents on the other side causing some major issues.
Yeah, we kind of think of Philadelphia Fusion as being a very strong dive team. That's the style that they like to play. They have all the pieces to be able to do it. But something we highlighted in the first half was some little quirks with how their cohesion was working. So I've got a highlight that I'm going to run into now. And you can see that, so we're going to start paused on the mini-map version. So you can see the positioning of all these guys. So the first thing I want to point out is the passive positioning here of Shadowburn and Dayfly. They are forced to take such a passive position because you've got Birdring, who's got a sightline on this McCree, that forces them to play passively, otherwise Shadowburn and Dayfly are both going to die. Now the counter to this is to go aggressive with your two divers, and that is Fraggy, who you can see there, and Carpe, who is not synced up with him in this moment. So as we slowly roll this one forwards, you can see that Birdring is able to evade the solo dive of Fraggy and loops around the right-hand side. Now Carpe comes in, but Birdring dispenses with him immediately. A stun and then a headshot, and Fraggy was too slow on the follow-up. Again, Birdring is able to move around and put pressure on Shadowburn and Dayfly so that they are passive. Poco's not in the fight, and they're able to take down Fraggy. So as we play this one out from the first-person perspective of Birdring, you can see that the dive was not synced up well enough to be able to shut him down. He gets the pick on the Carpe before the follow-up comes in, and Shadowburn and Poco are nowhere to be seen. So this dive needs to be tighter if they want to be able to shut down the powerful players coming out from London Spitfire.
I think my favorite part of that whole clip was just watching the little arrow and then eventually seeing the first person of Birdring. He never looks back. There's a Winston tickling your back with the Tesla, and he is just looking forward, going for the Mercy right after taking out the Tracer. That is just showing you how much trust he has in his healers.
Well, the result of not diving him effectively is having him pop off and have a Pine-esque performance. He actually, in those two maps, ended up with 15 eliminations and 13 final blows to himself. Most of them were just killing Carpe, killing Shadowburn, or rather, Shadowburn. And if you don't coordinate your dives effectively against heroes that are going to be well protected, it's just going to be a disaster.
Yeah, and another thing to point out as well is that when they moved over to Ruins and Birdring was on the Widowmaker, which you can see his statistics for here, it was on Shadowburn to try and create space on a Tracer, which is not a hero that you usually associate with Shadowburn inside Philadelphia Fusion. That's normally Carpe's role. Yeah. So there are some limitations at the moment with the Carpe Shadowburn kind of within that certain stage, because at the moment you need a Widowmaker and that has to be Carpe. So Shadowburn's slightly shallower hero pool, hurting him a little bit on that map.
All right, let's move on now to Numbani here as we talk about the way that London was able to close out this series. Sideshow, as we take a look at some of the general highlights, let's talk about the strengths here of this London Spitfire squad, because it seemed like we had a decent initial hold for Philadelphia Fusion, and then Prophet just gets in the backline over and over again.
Yeah, it's incredible, actually. With the DPS core of Prophet and Birdring, they have players that can play anything and anything to such an unbelievably high level. This may be the best DPS duo in the league, and Prophet on the Tracer was able to win 1v2s over in the flank, and they pushed this so aggressively through every point to start the snowball rolling.
Exactly. Take a look at this fight here. The objective hasn't even been capped. They have been diving and pressuring Philly way back so that they can create so much space for them. This, again, the point just barely gets capped. They're going to go for them one more time. And towards the final phase, they even go as far as spawn camping Philly to make sure that they just never enter the point. And that's just... You might see it as overextending, but as we've spoken before, overextending is really just subjective to where your team is at, and that was the right play, and they pull it off and just steamroll through Philly.
When your Zenyatta's also waiting outside that spawn, just throwing balls, you know you're in a pretty strong position. Real quick for Philadelphia Fusion, they started getting steamrolled. Their defense fell apart. What do they work on? What specific parts of their game can they improve before the next match?
I think they need to tighten up how they are attempting to shut down core players on enemy teams. And part of that comes down to, as we saw in kind of the minimap run-through, is getting synergy together between Fraggy when he's playing on the Winston and Carpe when he's going in on those flanks. Birdring's positioning is often fairly solo. He's taking a different flanking angle to a lot of the other guys. And so with a clean dive, they should be able to shut him down. Now, this might also come down to Poco positioning himself in a more aggressive diva formation rather than helping the backline, because at the moment it's only Fraggy and Carpe going on those dives.
All right, that's what we're looking for Philly to improve in the future. We talked about the strengths of Birdring and Prophet, the two DPS players for the London Spitfire going off, but our player of the match, sponsored by Omen by HP, it's the guy that enables him. It's half of the tank duo. Gesture was a monster all 4 maps. He played everything. You saw the main take on Winston, and of course, also the Reinhardt.
And it also happens to be that yesterday was Gesture's birthday. Happy belated to him. And he just was able to pop off. And the space that you create as a tank is what allows your DPS to shine through, because it's so easy to look at the DPS doing their thing, but it doesn't come that easily. It's a team effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about making space, this is being able to dive onto enemies so that they have to look behind them, causing a distraction, pressuring people that would otherwise be focusing on Prophet and Birdring. And Gesture has been excellent at that throughout this series.
And he was so excellent that in that last point of Numbani, the tank lineup had 18 final blows to themselves, whereas the DPS had 22, so only about 4 hero kill difference, which is pretty impressive when you consider how much the camera, how much we get to see the DPS pop off, but the tanks are always on the backline, pressuring that Zenyatta, making sure that they're always feeling uncomfortable moving forward, and it pays off in the stats.
And I think the way that you raise that as it being the tank duo that got those 18 final blows is giving some credit over to Fury as well, who has been phenomenal every time we've seen him. And the duo of the tank definitely is a duo, but Gesture for me was the star this time around.
All right, Gesture is our player of the match, sponsored by Omen by HP. Congratulations to the birthday boy. We're a little bit late, but don't worry, I'm buying both you and Shadowburn some birthday drinks a little bit later. That is going to do it for our first match of the day. We have plenty more to go, though. When we return, it's the New York XL taking on the Houston Outlaws. We'll see who walks away with a big win here on Saturday. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Intel.